and science of making data-driven decisions.
It's bright.
It is bright.
That's bright.
Hello, everybody.
Super bright.
Hope everyone's days have been going great so far. I just this morning learned that the peak of the human body's afternoon slump is 2:30 p.m. So we're here for it. It's my hope that our conversation can be the equivalent of a cup of coffee to y'all. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Molly Bechert. I am SVP of Client Partnerships here at Zeta Global. I am joined on stage by an esteemed panel of experts, and today we are here to talk about the art and science of making data-driven decisions. We're really going to be leaning into the notion of modern marketers as data scientists, at the very least, novice data scientists. And I think everyone in this room has heard the phrase analysis paralysis, but we don't really talk very much about data fog. And data fog is when you're a little bit paralyzed in using your intuition to make decisions because we have so much data at our fingertips. I also think everyone in this room realizes that great leaders need to be able to do both, to use their intuition, to synthesize data, to turn data to intelligence, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So I am going to introduce the panelists very briefly, and then we're going to dig into the content. First, starting to my left, we've got Carla Dodds. She is the CMO of PetMeds. She truly is a U.S. multicultural pioneer, so I'm hoping we can dig into that a little bit today. And she is a multiple rescue dog owner, truly living the brand of PetMeds. Next up, we've got Jay Roth, SVP of Marketing at Wells Fargo. He's relatively new to this role. He hails as well from Chase, Dish Network, and Sling. So we're going to talk about his experience there as well. I am going to call him a savant, a customer acquisition savant as well. And I bet he's the only one in this room who has hit a home run at the Diamondbacks Chase Field. So that's his claim to fame.
Wow, little known fact. Yeah.
Next up, we've got Sasha Verbitsky. He's the SVP of Data Analytics at Simon Malls. He is a retail analytics subject matter expert, so if you're in the retail space, try to grab him after this panel. He is also a national limbo champion. So that's good to know. You are! Wow. That's fun fact.
A little generous, but it's a sport-themed day, so we'll take it.
And finally, we have Matt Seubert, Director of Digital Marketing at Eggland's Best. I can speak from experience that he is a moonlighting data scientist, and he is on his way to Churchill, Canada after Zeta Live to watch polar bears, to experience.
High five them and
high-five
maybe
polar
just analyze data together, as polar bears have a lot to do.
Let's dig in. We're going to start with a topic that I mentioned earlier, analysis paralysis, and I'm going to start with Carla. Carla. Columbia Business School is currently offering a course called Quantitative Intuition. That's where students learn how to make smarter decisions, either with incomplete information or an overabundance of data. What I would like to hear from you is how do you know what data to care about, and how do you decipher meaningful information from data clutter?
Okay, thank you. For me, and definitely for our team, it's really focusing first on what are the goals and the expectations, the KPIs that we're trying to achieve. And then obviously data is so abundant out there. You can get it from so many different resources, as well as there's conflicting data that you get. So in order to really decipher which is the right data to use, I always encourage our team to definitely go back to what are the KPIs, what are we trying to solve for, and then validate as much as possible, whether it's through AI or other resources, definitely partnering, whether it's with Zeta or our media agency or other partners that we're working with. Obviously for us, it's the veterinarians as well as our pharmacists, just to make sure that we're in line in doing the right thing, which our goal is obviously the health and well-being of pets, and making sure that the pet owners and pet families have what they need in order to extend the lives and have comfortable lives for their pets.
Matt, I want to hear your point of view on this.
Yeah, so I actually started my career in social listening, and I used to hire for a number of analytical roles. One of the probably not terribly nice things I used to do in interviewing was we would do two cases. One was a bunch of normal business charts, so lots of graphs going up from left to right for good things, down from left to right for all the bad things with all the right color coding. People needed to tell a story. That was pretty normal. Most people like stories. They make us feel good about the numbers we're seeing. The second case I'd give people was a series of random numbers that we made into charts. I think for fun, I used some box scores from Razorback baseball games to generate some of the numbers. What I was testing was, were people willing to say they didn't know something? The team was often working to understand consumer insights, talk to clients. We couldn't have ghost hunters in the system. And in some ways, that's more important than ever now with the amount of data you get back, the opportunity to use AI to do cool things, but also to get back things that cause you problems if you don't cross-check them. And so having that foundation in separating signal from noise, wheat from chaff, whatever metaphor, but the sense to say this is something of value, or to say I don't know. And that was expression of uncertainty is often what we're looking for there.
Yeah. I just recently listened to a podcast where data scientists were trying to simplistically guide business decision makers on how to make decisions with copious amounts of data. And they had a really simple premise, and it was the IWIC method. I wish I knew. So when you've got a ton of data, how do you get the signals from the noise? Just asking yourself what you wish you knew, I think, isn't often just such a simple first step, but a powerful one as well. Sasha, what advice do you have? What advice do you give your teams when they're struggling with analysis paralysis? I'm sure you lead a large team in your day-to-day, so I would love to hear how you lead a team in this regard.
Yeah, in my experience, it's often very open-ended type of questions or unexpected results that lead to analysis paralysis. So to Carla's point, I do advise to try to narrow down that scope, get the hypotheses, what are the core KPIs we're trying to impact and drive here. So try to focus it as much as possible up front. For the unexpected results, always good to invest in data hygiene, just review, are you really, is it really the signal that's confusing or your instrumentation or perception of that signal that's throwing you off? Beyond that, I think automation, templatization, just trying to be as fast and efficient when we do it so that we can at least do it fast is always good. And then just being aware of some of the gotchas as part of that process. So correlation and causation, being able to differentiate between the two. So shark attacks and ice cream sales are highly correlated, but not a causal necessarily relationship there, right? So there is some just comparisons as well that you want to avoid, like Simpson paradox type of stuff. And ultimately, you want to time box that as well. So you cannot, you have to ultimately, in many instances, it could be okay to say, look, we don't have sufficient evidence, or we need to accumulate more data. We might need to look for a different data set, actually, or directly, solicit it or ask our customers as well. And at this point, we don't have sufficient evidence to answer this comprehensively and conclusively.
Jay, I see you nodding along. I want to hear your point of view.
Well, analysis paralysis, definitely. That's a real issue. Data fog, for sure. I'm going to add a new one, the shiny object. Right?
There's a lot of that.
You can get a lot of shiny objects when you're analyzing the data, and before you know it, you're down the rabbit hole, and holy cow, you can burn up a ton of resources, right? So the big thing that I preach is the reason that we're in business, especially in marketing, is acquire customers, retain customers, and build the brands. It's that simple. At least in the world of banking, those three things are the foundation. You got to acquire customers, you got to retain customers, and you got to build the brand. Yeah. So the way that we set up analytics, if you're not doing one of those three things, you might be down the rabbit hole, all right? So the big thing is bring it back to, especially when it comes to investing in marketing, what's that return on the investment if you're acquiring or retaining the customer?
I want to dig in on the shiny object. Do you have any examples of chasing a shiny object that you're allowed to share with us?
I'm going to hold off for now.
Okay, you can hold off for a second. All right. Matt, question for you. I was at Starbucks headquarters a couple of weeks ago, and I learned that their brand new CEO, Brian Niccol, has decided to decrease and highly decrease consumer options in store. So moving forward, there's going to be apparently a lot less options when you're placing your order at Starbucks. That seemed counterintuitive to me. Tell me about a time when data led you to a counterintuitive realization, or conversely, when your intuition told you to explore something counter to what the data was showing. Can you walk us through that?
Well, before getting into that, if there are any Starbucks customers looking for a sous vide egg round, they can check their frozen aisle from Eggland's Best. Just to give a shout out to our team there. But yeah, I think one of the interesting parts is when you get close to the data, one, you start to develop a bit of intuition about choices. You also sometimes get confronted by whether it's shiny objects, or my fun name for it has always been walking around numbers, things that people can say in 5 words or less with one number in the middle and that they feel real good about. I was on a past business managing our trade budget around subscriptions. We couldn't afford it. The program didn't make sense for us to do anymore, at least not in the format it was in. But if we asked consumers in a regular survey, they'd have said, how dare you take away my discount on an ongoing basis? If we'd asked the retailer, we'd have been thrown out of the room to say, how dare you take away our funding for this discount that everybody needs? But a lot of it was about framing the question we needed to ask. We then went back to consumers and asked them, name for us the discount you're getting, percentage, dollars. The majority of them couldn't remember what they were getting every month or two when they got a delivery. So we were able to kind of move away from the shiny object of, well, X% of our business is driven by this, we can't touch that, to, well, why are we subsidizing the 60-some% or more of people who couldn't tell you what they were saving? So it allowed us the freedom both of moving away from a number that people thought was a sacrosanct truth in the way we ran the business, to reallocate the dollars to say, well, let's acquire folks and then keep good customers or reward folks who we need to keep. And so it was a restructuring exercise that both required challenging the wisdom of what we thought was the case, but then also correcting it by talking to who we needed to in the consumer and listening to that data.
Super interesting. Sasha, what about you?
Yeah, I'd lean on my years of experience in e-com and marketing analytics. So a few things that come to mind from those days is I think when when omnichannel started to really be a big deal, and a lot of retailers started to really start to understand and balance their e-commerce versus their physical presence. I think there were lots of early concerns that maybe as you expand your store fleet or branches, right, it might take away from your e-commerce, right? There's cannibalization, and over time we actually illustrated it's the opposite. It's actually all of that experience and the returns maybe or other customer service type of options you added to the stores actually helped, and ability to try stuff on actually helped the e-com business. So I think that was a pretty notable change from some of the initial hypotheses there. Some other things like classical within marketing, we typically start with a MMM type of budget allocations, and you have certain beliefs and certain KPIs that show you that here is how my marketing is working, and here is what we believe in, and everything a lot of times working great, and it's a great, better, and excellent. So once we started testing and truly building some of the testing frameworks and true incrementality work, we've actually seen very different results, and some of the lines really had to be adjusted and moved and reallocated very differently. So that was a pretty big fundamental shift in how we assessed what was working and what was not, and those intuitions and kind of tribal knowledge that existed had to be changed and had to be basically realigned.
Rethought. I'm going to move on a little bit from intuition to data that is initially maybe deemed insignificant. And Jay, I want to direct this at you, I think. So along the lines of intuitive thinking, can you share an example of when you found your way to a data-driven insight, and at first it just seemed like a minor thing, a totally insignificant thing, and then it blew up your marketing strategy. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, oh my gosh. So imagine this. We're so busy generating interested phone calls from potential customers, website hits, in the hundreds of thousands. Things are great, right? And we look at our conversion rates and they're not that good, right? And in marketing, we're kind of patting ourselves on the back. We're generating the interest, right? And we're filling the call centers with enough calls, and we're doing a great job. And then we did something that marketers should be doing more often, which is we sat down and actually listened to the customer and actually heard them as they went through that customer journey and realized that we weren't doing something right. And the particular product that we had was a credit product, so we actually had to pull a credit bureau, right, on the individual. Well, the customer wanted to know a bunch of stuff, like what's the interest rate going to be, what's this going to be, things like that. We couldn't quote it until we got the credit bureau. Well, once we asked for their social security number over the phone, people just hung up. It was a huge aha to marketing that we could keep driving customers in to the call center, to the website, but if we have the funnel broken with a big hole, we're wasting a ton of money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what we ended up doing was we switched the whole process. We changed the marketing efforts so that they were pre-qualified. And we actually understood, was the customer going to be qualified first? That's one thing. And then when they called in, we didn't even ask for the social security number. You can actually have a soft bureau inquiry. If there's anybody here from one of the 3 bureaus, they can explain that in more detail. But bottom line is you can get their ability to pull the credit bureau, so you never have to actually have to ask that sensitive question that a lot of people don't want to give over the phone. So bottom line was our salespeople, they absolutely loved it because it changed the process. They ended up, instead of converting 30% of their phone calls, it immediately jumped up to 70%.
Oh my God.
70%. And it was because marketing had to change the customer journey and understand where are the pain points, where are we losing customers, where, basically how can we actually make that so it's a seamless process. It was an absolute game changer. The salespeople loved marketing because they started to hit their sales goals a lot easier, right? Started to get paid more. And they were busy closing deals instead of kind of handling that awkward situation of trying to get the social security number.
Oh, such a good example. I'm going to talk a little bit about AI. I think there's been a lot of AI talk today, so we're just going to dip in and then dip out. But Carla, this one's for you. I think when we chatted earlier, I think we both agreed that AI is not a replacement for human judgment or thought. I would assume most folks in this room probably agree with that. But what sort of best practices or tenets do you put in place with your team to ensure that balance of intuition, judgment, and rich, robust data?
Well, it's just like everyone's been saying, start with the customer and truly understanding the customer and their mindset, their behaviors, from an emotional level, really. And for our business, it's very emotional because it's their pets' lives, and the relationship that our customers have with their pets are different depending on what generation. Mostly they could be either parent or guardian to them, or they could be their best friends for the younger audiences. So really tapping into that emotional sentiment that I don't believe AI really does. They can give you that data, but really going back to the insights, as I previously said, and the consumer insights as well as the customer insights. For us, the consumer is the pet and the customer is the pet family. And bringing those together, as well as then using AI to validate, and then looking at the numbers and the validation of it to just create that balance. So I fully agree. I think AI is a great enhancement tool or support tool, but ultimately humanity is what's driving the decision and the behaviors for pets.
I love that example. I'm definitely a pet guardian, not a best friend, I don't think.
I'm definitely a guardian myself.
You are?
I'm a parent, yes.
Any best friends in the room? Okay, let's move on. I'm going to talk a little bit about emotional impact and data and storytelling, one of my favorite topics. Sasha, I'm going to start with you, and then Jay, you're going to have a chance to follow up on this as well. Harvard Business Review actually found that emotionally connected consumers are 52% more valuable than just highly satisfied ones. I thought that was an interesting stat. Can data really help evoke emotions in your audience? And how do you balance that emotional, creative aspect of storytelling with that rational, data-driven side as well? Sasha, you want to start?
Sure. Love the precision of the data point. 52%, not 50, not whatever. Yeah, I think data and can definitely provide very useful tools and inputs in that kind of driving of your business results and emotionally connecting with your customers. So You can understand their intent, their needs, affinities. You can understand preferred mediums and media types, right? Like you can split them into segments and cohorts. So there's a lot of that, kind of homework that you can get help doing. But then again, it's not on its own just that. There are some Gen AI tools now that can, help you maybe get some ideas and with the right prompts could maybe get some inspiration, aspiration, but it's still probably going to be that kind of the left brain part to the right brain or more, creative storytelling that's going to drive that. But then you do want it on the back end as well. So to get to 52%, so to measure, get the feedback, is that, emotional engagement, is that working? Is it working right? So I think it's kind of both. It could be facilitator, enabler, but not dual.
Not solely. Yeah, data can lead to intelligence, which then can arm your emotional strategy, I suppose. All right, Jay, what about you?
I'm going to call bull S on 52%.
Yeah.
I mean, Harvard Business Review, they get a lot of things
I
right.
don't know how they measured it.
I think it's like 100%, 200%. If you can get an emotionally connected customer, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is, of course, not only will word of mouth advertising help from that, but you have the ability to cross-sell, right? And deepen the relationship. And in the world of banking, I've worked at Chase for a long time and recently Wells Fargo. It's all about understanding the data so that you can actually predict or help the customer with the next financial situation. And if you have a customer who is loyal to you, it makes it so much easier, of course. The thing you have to do, I think as marketers, we actually kind of know this, you have to prove your value. So data is simply data. I don't think it's an emotional connection, but it's what you do with that. And the big thing is providing insights. So, a big part of kind of our technology agenda at Wells Fargo is to take all these signals, which is all this customer information, everything from, where transactions are happening on debit cards and on credit cards and payments, and it's amazing, of course, what banks have available to them. But the big thing is deliver the right offer at the right time to the customer. That's where a customer ends up saying, they will not say, I got a solicitation. Instead, they'll say, wow, this was really helpful. I got a bargain. I got something that actually meets my needs. That's where you start to create that emotional connection.
I'm really excited to lean into the AI agent from Wells Fargo. Are we going to talk about that later?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Great.
We'll bring that up next.
Yep.
Okay, great. Matt, data can inform a single campaign, obviously. It can also evoke a brand's entire narrative. How have you used data insights to pivot or redefine Eggland's or previous employers' brand story over time? And was there a moment when data completely changed the brand narrative that you were telling?
So I'll speak to Eggland's a little bit here. I think it's one where I'd say it's less of a change of the brand narrative, but who we tell it to. I would guess from a lot of folks in the room, you've probably seen Eggland's in one of the bumper ads around Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy. That has helped build an extraordinary brand that makes a genuinely better egg. When we think about going into digital, though, we get the opportunity to say, hey, those aren't just some attentive eyeballs who maybe are among the 80 to 90% of households that if you opened up their fridge, you'd find eggs. We know that when we think about our targeting strategy in digital, where we might pay a little bit more for a click to sell a product that many consumers might think of as a commodity, we need to think about who's a persuadable consumer. Private label eggs or commodity store brand eggs represent 60 to 70% of units sold in most grocery stores in the country. What we need to sort out, and what we're often partnered with Zeta or other data partners and the way we work digitally, is that 60 to 70% is not equally persuadable. There are folks who, either because of means or choices, can't spend up. Then there are folks who are on the fence if prices are right. Then there's folks who we just haven't yet gotten the right message and the right time and the right creative to get an Eggland's Best Egg in their basket and hopefully in their fridge for the future.
I love that. I love the idea of the persuadable, and I feel like every marketer could take that back with them. If you're losing share to someone, figure out who is persuadable to get back into your franchise, who cares about the values that your brand provides, and then reach them in a personalized fashion based on what they actually care about. So love that idea. Great example. Carla, it's your turn. You're up.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask the question
Yeah, ask
again?
the question again, because I was in depth in the Egglands right now.
Yeah, data informing either a single campaign or your entire brand's narrative. And tell us about a time when you had to pivot or maybe redefine your brand strategy based on insights.
So on insights, obviously in the pet industry, there's a lot of price sensitivity as a whole. And so one of the things that we're finding, obviously, in the data and the insights is the emotional connection with pets that I just spoke about. So it can't always be promotional driven. You know, it can't be, you were talking about the right offer. The right offer is not just a promotion. It's about filling in that need and want at the right time for the right pet. And then for us, it's obviously based on breeds, it's based on age, it's based on conditions. So bringing all these different components of data to really come forth with the right offer is where I think it's the right blend of human intelligence with AI. It can't be just all on the data, because you have to actually, you know, not just look at what the industry is driving from a promotional standpoint. There's a delicate balance. I mean, you'll still obviously participate in seasonality with some promotions, but ultimately the connection and the conversation has to be about the pet's well-being.
I'm gonna dig into that a little bit. You mentioned different breeds, different dog ages, maybe different conditions dogs have. Let's talk about the need for both art and science in terms of personalization. You sort of touched upon it, but I would love to hear your approach to personalization. Obviously, we've talked about it a lot today at Zeta Live. Hyper-personalization can get pretty icky pretty quick. So how do you balance that, and what is your approach at PetMeds to personalization?
And before I answer that, I said dogs, but we also have cats and equine, and I do want to be equal opportunity and inclusive.
You also have a promo code that we need to talk about.
We'll talk about the promo code. So, so that is promotional, because, you know, this is the right moment for that. But aligned with basically just looking at the overarching component of, you know, personalization for us is not one-to-one. So personalization can be one-to-one on the customer, and obviously we are redefining what are those customer journeys and getting to that level of depth, if you will, to be more personalized one-to-one. We're not there yet, it's a journey, but we can actually personalize based on the conditions, so as I mentioned, as well as what are your breeds. You know, a doodle, like I have a golden doodle, so I can speak to a golden doodle. I love cats, but I'm allergic to them, so I love watching them in our pets team, if you will. So it's really about understanding the differences and what the needs and wants. So I can talk to itchy skin for doodles, so that's more personalized. And you know, one thing that came up even with one of our interns over the summer was like, you're always happy when you see a pet, you know, that emotional connection. But you're even happier if you see your pet or someone that looks, I mean, a pet that looks like your pet, if you will. So driving that personalization through storytelling as well is definitely one of our goals going forward.
I love that.
And refinement of personalization overall.
Perfect. We've got a few minutes left, so Jay and Matt, you're going to hopefully answer this expeditiously, not to put the pressure on. In meetings quite a bit with brands, Zeta finds that we've got a lot of clients talking about brand love. There has been sort of this intense focus over the last few years on performance, and we have a lot of brands coming to us with brand love and loyalty issues. I want to talk about using data to make decisions aimed at building brand love or brand loyalty. When I think about banking, I think about transactions. When I think about eggs, I think about a commodity. Talk to me about how you use data to build brand love. Jay, I'm going to start with you, and then we can end with that.
I am excited to hear about the eggs, though. Okay. I tell you, if banking was purely a commodity, then we'd be in trouble at Wells Fargo. And what we are trying to do every day is actually change that mindset, so that you as a customer would say, I'm never going to leave because I'm getting something that is so hard to replicate someplace else. Like, it wasn't all that long ago that if you wanted to handle any banking transaction, you had to go to a branch, right? Man, that thank God, that is in the distant past. And then recently, now everything is on the app, right? You can pretty much do all your banking on your app, in your phone, anywhere in the world, right? That's a huge improvement. Where we're going as the next step with artificial intelligence is instead of the do it yourself on the app, you're going to be able to simply tell our personal assistant, your personal banking assistant, what you want to have done, and we'll do it for you. That's where banking is going. So you can actually just ask questions. What's my balance? What's my routing number? And it'll actually come back using the AI to deliver that. If it's things like transfer $20 to Alexandra, my daughter, use Zelle, boom, it'll happen. It's that do it for you. That is like the next stage that we're working on right now. A lot of it is already in place. If you're a Wells Fargo customer, you know of Fargo. That is our personal banking assistant. And just think about all the data that we have behind the scenes that we can actually help to provide insights to you so that when you think about, okay, how can I get a better deal here or here or here, we can actually help you. We can actually tell you if you have 2 subscriptions, a Pandora and a Sirius satellite and an Apple TV and Spotify, right? We can actually alert you that you have multiple subscriptions, using the tool that we have.
Matt, we are out of time, unfortunately.
Oh, I want to hear about the eggs.
You can catch him off stage.
But if you want love and love for your pets, check out PetMeds.com, and you could use a promo code CMO just this weekend.
We got a promo code this week. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today.
And now, please welcome the business of sports, the intersection of innovation and digital.